Hello guys, today we're going to talk about some American news actually for a change. We're going to talk about how the left in America is just becoming so radical and just so out there that they're willing to ostracize and demonize people who are technically on their own side just for not being radical enough. My name is Sharma. Welcome to the Shamsharmashow. Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Shamsharmashow. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you. Okay, guys, so I'm going to try and do something new on the show from here on forward. I'm going to try and do like a story from America or a story or an international story every week once on the show. Why? I always very deeply will care about, stories happening in India and stories that affect Hindus because that's my passion. But I live in the US, for the time being. This is the country that I've adopted and this is the country that has adopted me. And I do have an opinion. I do care about some things that happen here as well, particularly because I find a lot of parallels between the US and India. I feel that Hindus face a lot of things in India that a lot of Americans are facing in America. So there's certainly a lot of parallels here. And when I talk about these issues, those parallels are going to come forward even more. So I want to do a segment every week where I talk about these issues in America as well. And I hope you enjoy this segment. And if you do, please make sure to give the video a thumbs up and please make sure to subscribe. Okay, so in today's story, I want to talk about Christina Hoff Sommers. Christina Hoff Sommers is a PhD in philosophy. She is a registered Democrat, a classical liberal, and she calls herself a feminist. She identifies as a feminist, and she identifies as a factual feminist. She's a feminist that doesn't just fall into the tropes, that she's someone that evaluates the feminist movement empirically and with evidence. But unfortunately, just because she evaluates the feminist movement empirically and with facts, she is a fascist. At least that's the assertion that is being made by many people on the left about her. She recently went to Lewis and Clarke Law School in Oregon, where she was harassed by a bunch of students and her talk was interrupted by a bunch of students. And I know people have already talked about this on YouTube. Some black guy has already talked about it, and Sargon of Akkad had already talked about this at length as well. But I want to put in my 2 cents as well because I do feel strongly about this topic. So what happened there was she was invited by the Federalist Society in the college to give a talk on feminism. So Barry Weiss at New York Times had actually written a great piece on this whole issue that I'm going to reference a little bit. And Barry Weiss is one of those people, again, if you look at it on paper, she's one of those classical liberals as well. But again, she has been under fire from the left as well for not being radical enough. So she's written an article in the New York Times talking about this issue too, where she mentions that in advance of the lecture, 9 student groups, among them the Portland National Lawyers Guild, the Minority Law Student Association, the Women's Law Caucus, the Jewish Law Society, and the school's Young Democratic Socialists of America chapter sent a letter protesting the appearance by this known fascist. And that's what just boggles my mind, is that just someone that looks at a particular movement and just doesn't fall for this particular movement hook, line, and sinker. Even though she identifies with this movement, she just doesn't fall for everything that this movement is all about. Just because of that fact, she's now a known fascist. And I think that's absolutely insane because there's real fascism out there. I'm going to talk about that in a second as well. But let me first tell you what else that letter had. That letter had the most insane definition of free speech that I've heard in recent times. So obviously the letter said that the invitation handed out to Christina Hoff Sommers acted as an act of aggression and violence. What? So according to them, freedom of speech is certainly an important tenet to a free, healthy society, but that freedom stops when it has a negative and violent impact on other individuals. So according to this logic, if I say that I hated the Star Wars movie, the latest Star Wars movie that came out, I think the movie fell short on a lot of things. If I say things like that, that might piss off a lot of Star Wars fans who actually like the movie, which means that my speech is violence and therefore shouldn't be allowed. So now, because I will offend a bunch of Star Wars fans, I can't say anything about the Star Wars movie. That's not believing that freedom of speech is actually a tenet of a free, healthy society. That's not believing in free speech at all. And I want to show you a clip of this little protest as well that they organized in Lewis and Clarke Law School.
Women are not liars with victim mentalities. Rape culture is not
And I think that's insane. And I think that if you really want to shut someone down, somebody whose opinions that you don't agree with, if you really want to shut them down with your own good argument. Present a good, cogent, coherent argument that completely destroys their argument, and that's the best way to shut somebody up for good. Threatening violence and, rudely interrupting someone and just shouting them down completely delegitimizes your argument. Now, you might have a good argument, okay? It's possible that you have a good argument, but if you just scream and shut the other person down, that completely delegitimizes your argument. And look, I believe that there is a space for progressivism. I think progressivism is a very important thing for a society. These progressive values in India have helped us combat the problem of untouchability and fight it in the caste system and move away from it. I see that these progressive values have helped American society move away from slavery, move away from Jim Crow, and usher in the civil rights movement, and at least in law, ensure the equality of all people. But if you take anything to an extreme, it's not good. Everything in moderation, and that's important. Progressivism needs to be in moderation. A little bit of conservatism is good for a society. It helps to preserve a society. But if you go too far, you get those animals at the alt-right. And the crazy thing also is that calling these people fascists just takes away the power and the strength of these terms, because there are actual fascists out there. And Barry Weiss mentions it in her article as well. She talks about Vladimir Putin. She talks about how Xi Jinping has actually declared himself president for life in China, and how he clamps down on freedom of expression and freedom of thought in China simply for the crime of not agreeing with you. Labeling those people fascists, it just takes away the power of those terms, and I think it's a very dangerous thing to do. And what's happening to Christina Hoff Sommers right now, it hits home for me, because this is something that the left has done to Ayaan Hirsi Ali for a very long time. Ayaan Hirsi Ali, I don't know how many people are aware of her, but she's an ex-Muslim from Somalia who, underwent female genital mutilation, who was about to get married to a much older man in Somalia, and she escaped Somalia, moved to the Netherlands, created a good life for herself, and is somebody that speaks out against the radical ideas of Islam, and somebody that I admire a lot. And she has been demonized often by the left as this anti-Muslim Islamophobic, which couldn't be further from the truth. So yeah, I think we just need to take a step back and just try and listen. And I want to throw this question out to you guys as well. What do you think about this whole situation? Do you think we just moved too far away? How do you think is the best way to solve this problem? I want to hear your opinion, so please get involved in the comment section below. Alright guys, and that's today's show. Please let me know what you think of today's episode. If you like today's episode, please make sure to give this a thumbs up. Please make sure to share the show. And please, if you like today's content, please make sure to subscribe to the show's channel. Alrighty, I will see you again on Wednesday. And until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you soon.